I was just 18 when my entire world imploded thanks to one lie that came out of my cousin's mouth. 3 years later, she's on her deathbed, and the truth has finally come crawling into the daylight like a roach. But back then, no one wanted to hear it, especially not my own parents. Let me take you back. My cousin, let's call her Tessa, was 4 years older than me. We used to be close when we were kids, but once we hit high school, that bond started fading. She was the daughter of my mom's younger brother, Uncle Ray. He was a single dad, and honestly, one of the most straight-laced, no-nonsense men I've ever known. His wife bailed when Tessa was little, ran off with some guy she met at work, and never looked back. Ray raised Tessa on his own, and everyone in the family praised him like he was some kind of saint. And in a way, he was. He never dated again, never remarried. His entire life was built around giving Tessa the best he could. He worked his butt off, even started a college fund for her. But once she turned 22 and finished her undergrad, she wanted to keep going. Master's, PhD, the whole academic buffet. Ray put his foot down. He told her, "I've done my part. If you want to keep studying, that's on you now." He wasn't wrong. At 22, she was more than capable of working and studying like the rest of us. But Tessa didn't see it that way. She thought she deserved to be supported until she decided she was done learning or until the money ran out, whichever came first. The fights between them got ugly. And guess where she always ran when they clashed? Our house. My mom would always listen to her side of the story like she was the second coming of Mother Teresa. Me, I kept my mouth shut most of the time, but I always felt like Ray was being reasonable. Then came the day everything changed. I was home alone. Can't remember if my parents were out at a dinner or some family event, but I was definitely flying solo. Tessa showed up unannounced, like she often did, and when I told her my mom wasn't there, I expected her to leave. Instead, she flopped onto the couch like she owned the place. "I just need to be away from my dad right now," she muttered. I didn't argue. I just went back to my room, figuring she'd chill out and leave soon. But no. She started venting. Loudly, I'd heard her rant a dozen times before, but this time she turned the volume to 11. Eventually, I snapped. I told her the truth. "Tessa," I said, "maybe your dad isn't the villain. He raised you alone. He put you through undergrad. Now you want more, and you think it's his job to keep funding you. That's not how life works. You're grown. Get a job." She went silent. Her expression flipped from frustration to something else. Rage, pure, red-hot rage. "You don't get it," she hissed. "You're just some spoiled little brat who's had everything handed to you. You think you're better than me." Before I could even respond, she stormed out of the house, slamming the door so hard the picture frames rattled. I thought that was the end of it. I couldn't have been more wrong. The next morning, my parents woke me up like the house was on fire. "Get downstairs," my dad barked. "Now." Tessa and Uncle Ray were there. Tessa was crying, no sobbing, as if she'd just escaped a horror movie. Ray looked like he'd aged 10 years overnight. My mom was pale. My dad wouldn't even look me in the eye. Then it hit. Tessa claimed I had hurt her, that I had touched her when she came over the night before. She said I took advantage of her vulnerability and violated her trust. And somehow she made it sound believable. I froze, my brain short-circuited. What I stammered, "That's not true, I didn't." But no one was listening. Not one damn person. Ray said she came home in tears, inconsolable. And after a while, she finally told him what I did. My dad turned to me and said, "We saw the footage. We know she came here last night. We know she ran out crying." That was all the evidence they needed. No one asked for my side. No one wanted it. My parents didn't even let me speak before they begged Ray not to call the police. I was standing there silent as they negotiated behind my back like I wasn't even in the room. I was livid. I grabbed the nearest thing I could, a decorative vase, and smashed it against the wall just to get their attention. It didn't help. My dad dragged me upstairs, locked me in my room like I was some criminal, and told me to stay there until Tessa and Ray were gone. When he came back, I was crying, furious, helpless. "I didn't do it," I whispered. "He didn't care? They agreed not to press charges, but you're leaving." Just like that, I was exiled, shipped off to live with Great Uncle Hank in the middle of nowhere. Hank was a miserable old man with a temper like a firecracker and zero patience. My dad knew I hated him. That was the point. To make things worse, my parents told Tessa they'd give her my college fund every last cent. They said it was a show of good faith. I protested, begged them to believe me. Nothing worked. I wasn't just cut off financially, I was cut out of their lives. Phone gone, social media wiped, no goodbyes, no explanations. Just me, a suitcase, and a one-way trip to isolation. The worst part, I knew she lied. And I knew why. Tessa wasn't just mad at me, she saw an opportunity. By throwing me under the bus, she not only deflected attention from her own mess, but also secured funding from my parents when her own dad refused to help her anymore. It was calculated cold brilliant in a twisted way, but it destroyed me. I moved into Hank's guest room, a dusty, foul-smelling cave of a space, and started from scratch. No friends, no family, no future. The college I'd dreamed of. Gone. I got a job at a warehouse lifting boxes for minimum wage just to survive. I didn't talk to anyone unless I had to. I trusted no one. Eventually, I met a couple of guys my age at work. We bonded over cheap ramen and the shared misery of night shifts. One day, we pooled our paychecks and rented a tiny apartment together. It was a dump, but it was ours. I started rebuilding. 3 years passed. We upgraded jobs, moved to a better place, made plans for college. Life wasn't easy, but it was mine. Honest, hard-earned, and far from the people who threw me away. Then they reached out. An email from my dad. Just one line in, and I knew everything had changed. Tessa was dying, and she finally told the truth. When I first saw the email, my chest tightened like I was 18 again, back in that room, back in that storm. It was from my dad. Subject line just said, "I owe you an apology." I stared at it for a solid 10 minutes before opening it. Part of me thought it was a mistake. Spam. Maybe he hit send by accident. But when I finally opened it, it was like someone took a crowbar to my chest and cracked it wide open. He said Tessa had been diagnosed with late-stage pancreatic cancer. She didn't have long, and now suddenly the truth mattered. Apparently, she'd told her dad everything. That I never touched her. That the accusation was a lie. One she cooked up after our argument to punish me and to pressure my parents into giving her the money I was supposed to use for college. Ray Uncle Saint Father of the Year was devastated, he told my parents. And now, after 3 years of silence, they wanted to talk. I didn't reply, not right away. Instead, I sat on the floor of my apartment reading that email over and over again until the words blurred. 3 years I lost everything, and now they wanted to reconnect. My roommates, my found family really noticed something was off. I wasn't eating, wasn't talking much. Finally, one night, I sat them down and told them everything. Until then, they only knew the surface story that I'd been kicked out by my folks over some family drama. They didn't know the real story. I told them about Tessa. About the lie. About being shipped off to live with Great Uncle Hank, the human version of a bear trap. I told them how my parents took my college fund and handed it to the person who had just accused me of a crime. They were floored. I'd have cut them off forever, Malik said, pacing. That's not family, man. That's betrayal, Jake added. And the thing is, they weren't wrong. But the worst part, I wanted to talk to my parents, not because I missed them, but because I needed answers. Why was it so easy for them to believe her? Why did they throw me away like I was disposable? I didn't need closure. I needed the truth. So, I replied. Short message. I got your email. I'm not ready to talk, but I'm thinking about it. They responded within the hour. My mom this time. She was crying, apparently. Said she couldn't sleep since hearing the truth, that they'd always hoped it wasn't true, but couldn't risk defending me without proof. Proof. The word made me laugh out loud. They had my word, but that wasn't enough. Not when their niece was crying on the floor and spinning a good story. I didn't tell them this, but their proof was a 15-second security cam clip of Tessa leaving our house in tears. No context, no audio, but that was enough for them to sell me down the river. I told my roommates everything they said, and we all sat there trying to process it. You should tell your side. Jake said, "People deserve to know." I knew he meant online, Reddit, Facebook, whatever platform I wanted. He wasn't wrong. I had lived in fear for 3 years, constantly wondering if someone would find out what people thought I'd done. That lie followed me, even though no one said it out loud. I was always waiting for the other shoe to drop. I was exhausted from hiding a shame that wasn't even mine. But even more than that, I felt angry. Not just at Tessa, but at the people who let her lie become reality, who chose not to listen, who decided silence was better than truth and shipped me off like unwanted luggage. And now that Tessa was dying suddenly, everyone wanted peace? Nah, not yet. I asked my dad for one thing. Proof. I wanted it in writing. I told him if he really wanted me to believe this newfound honesty, I needed an email spelling out the truth. Tessa's confession and an acknowledgement that they had been wrong. He sent it the next day. It was pitiful, like he was trying to lawyer his way through it. Lots of, "We didn't know better, and we believed what we saw." And Tessa's words carried weight at the time, but buried in the middle of it all was the one line that mattered. Tessa admitted she made it all up. "You didn't do anything wrong." That was enough. Not enough to forgive them, but enough to finally feel like I wasn't crazy, like my life hadn't fallen apart for nothing. That night, I printed the email and stared at it. I could finally tell my story. I could go online and post the truth. Screenshots, timeline. My side of what happened. All of it. But before I did, I thought about reaching out to the people I used to be close with. Friends I hadn't seen in years. Cousins who used to be like siblings. There were people I missed. People I'd pushed away because I was told to, because I thought I had no other choice. So I reached out, one by one, quietly, carefully. And the response, overwhelming. Most of them had no idea what had happened. My parents had apparently told everyone I was dealing with trauma and needed space, that I'd asked for no one to contact me. That was a lie, too. They stole my story. They stole my voice, and they used it to protect Tessa's reputation. They let everyone think I was the broken one, that I'd just vanished by choice. But guess what? I'm back now, and I've got a story to tell. Once I realized how many people were kept in the dark, I knew I had to speak up. My friends, my cousins. Even a couple of teachers who had reached out in those first few months before my parents ghosted them on my behalf. I wasn't just erased. I was replaced with a version of me that never existed. The messed up part. People believed it. Not because they thought I was capable of something awful, but because they couldn't imagine my parents lying. That's how trust works, right? It doesn't take a knife to break it, just silence and time. So I started writing everything down. Not for drama, not for attention, but because the only thing louder than a lie is the truth once you finally let it breathe. I laid it all out. What happened the night Tessa came over, what she accused me of, how my parents reacted, how I was sent away like trash. I even included the email my dad sent the line that confirmed I was innocent. The one sentence I read over and over to remind myself I wasn't crazy. Tessa admitted she made it all up. Then I posted it. No names, no photos, just the story. The fallout was immediate. Old friends messaged me within hours. Some were heartbroken, some were furious. Most of them were just shocked. They'd been told I needed space, that I'd gone through some deep emotional event and chose to cut ties. No one had told them I'd been cut off. I knew something felt off. One of my cousins wrote, "You just disappeared." "I thought you ghosted us," said another. "Turns out your parents ghosted us for you." Some people were angry that I hadn't reached out sooner. But once I explained how I was forced off social media, given a burner phone, and monitored like I was on parole, they got it. My roommates were cheering in the background as the support kept rolling in. "This is justice, bro." Malik said, "No one gets to rewrite your story but you." For the first time in 3 years, I didn't feel like I was hiding under someone else's shadow. I was just me, and people were still there, still willing to believe in me. That mattered more than I realized. But not everyone was thrilled. By the next morning, I had a fresh set of messages from my parents, my uncle, and even Tessa's old high school friends, all begging me to take it down. "It's not the right time," my mom said. "She's dying, for God's sake." Uncle Ray's message was a masterpiece in guilt tripping. He said that Tessa was repentant and deeply ashamed, and that exposing her now would only add to her suffering. "You've made your point," he wrote. "Let it go." But here's the thing, I wasn't posting to get revenge. I posted because I lived with that lie for years. It cost me everything: my education, my relationships, my peace of mind. And now that the truth was finally out, I wasn't going to bury it just because it made people uncomfortable. Tessa might have told the truth at the 11th hour, but the damage was already done. And if I had to pick between protecting her reputation or reclaiming my life, I'd pick myself every time. My parents didn't get it. They said I was acting out and letting anger consume me. I wasn't angry. I was free. But I did give them one chance to talk. One chance to sit down with me virtually, not in person, and say what they needed to say. Not to defend themselves, just to acknowledge what they did. They agreed. We set up a video call. I hadn't seen their faces in 3 years. My mom cried the second I appeared on the screen. My dad looked older, smaller, like the guilt had carved lines into his face. They both apologized, kind of. It was full of, "We thought we were doing the right thing and we had to protect her." "But what about me?" I asked. "What about protecting your son?" They didn't have an answer for that. They said they were scared, that the accusation was so serious they couldn't take any risks, that it was easier to believe her. And there it was. They didn't choose her because the story made more sense. They chose her because it was easier. Easier to ship me off than confront the possibility she was lying. Easier to let a good kid go than deal with a messy truth. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I just sat there letting the silence fill the space between us like a wall. They offered to help me now, money, therapy, whatever I needed, but I didn't want any of that. What I needed, they couldn't give. 3 years ago, when I needed them most, they gave me exile. Now that I didn't need them, they wanted to come home. I told them I appreciated the apology, but I didn't think we could go back. Not to how things were, not even close. And I ended the call. After that, I got another message from my uncle. It was short, just 4 words. "You ruined her life." That one stung. Not because it was true, but because I think he believed it. In his mind, Tessa's suffering was my fault, not hers, not his mine, because I refused to stay silent, because I refused to let a lie keep winning. But the truth, Tessa ruined her own life. She told the lie. She doubled down on it. She accepted money from my parents, my college fund, and spent it not on education, but on a year-long luxury self-discovery tour around the globe: Paris, Tokyo, Bali. Meanwhile, I was sleeping in a room that smelled like wet drywall, lifting 50-pound boxes for minimum wage. She came back broke, still refused to work. And now, facing her own mortality, she thought the truth would buy her peace. Maybe it will, but it won't come from me, not by erasing what she did. I didn't ask for revenge. I didn't orchestrate some elaborate plan to ruin her. I just told the truth and let it do what it does best. Burn. After my uncle messaged me, "You ruined her life." I just sat there staring at the screen for a while. No response, no typing indicator. Just those 4 words sitting in my inbox like they meant something. I didn't reply. Because if I had, I would have said something I couldn't take back, something ugly. And honestly, I didn't need to. He said I ruined her life, but she wrecked mine. I was the one forced to leave home. I was the one who lost my education, my family, my friends. I was the one living in someone else's basement, trying to piece my life back together with duct tape and minimum wage. All because she told one lie. And now the same people who threw me out wanted me to put the fire out because it had finally started to burn them too. I didn't feel bad, not even a little. What shocked me, though, was how many people I hadn't spoken to in years, came out of nowhere to say they'd always suspected something was off. "Your parents acted weird after you left." She changed after that trip, arrogant like she thought she was untouchable. Something about her didn't sit right with me. Over and over, I kept hearing the same thing. Nobody had all the pieces but the ones they had never added up. And once I told my side, everything clicked. I was getting messages from relatives I hadn't even remembered were on Facebook. People who used to babysit me. People I barely saw except at weddings. They were reaching out just to say, "I believe you. I'm sorry I didn't sooner." Some of them even said they'd already cut ties with my parents and Uncle Ray. Said the way they handled things was disgraceful. A few even admitted they'd tried to talk to my parents after I vanished, but were told I didn't want to speak to anyone. They made it sound like you were going through something dark, one of my aunts said, but they never let us speak to you directly. Now I know why. That hit harder than I expected. Not because it hurt, but because it confirmed something I'd always feared, that they didn't just exile me. They rewrote me, turned me into some ghost version of myself. One they could explain away with fake sympathy and vague sadness. They had an answer ready for anyone who asked. They just never had the truth. But now that truth was out in the open and the silence that used to smother me, gone, replaced with something better, louder, honest. I could finally breathe again. Still, it felt weird. Freeing. Yeah, but weird. I'd spent so long being invisible that being seen again almost didn't feel real. Every message from someone saying, "I'm glad you spoke up," was a reminder that I didn't imagine all of this, that I wasn't crazy for feeling betrayed. And yet, not a day went by without someone from the other side trying to get me to take it all down. They kept throwing the same words at me. She's dying. And sure, part of me gets it. It's not like I want her to suffer more than she already is. She's terminal. She's in pain. I understand that. But what they were asking for wasn't about peace, it was about control. They didn't want her legacy tainted, didn't want to admit that their golden girl had a dark side. Even now, even with everything out in the open, they were still trying to clean it up. Repaint the story in soft colors like the damage never really happened. She regrets it. She was scared. She wasn't thinking straight. I kept hearing it from everyone who stood by her, but no one ever said, "You deserved better." That was the part that made my blood run cold. Not one of them acknowledged what it felt like to be me in all of this. What it meant to lose years of my life, my name, my future, just to keep up their little illusion. They were all so focused on her shame, her pain, her regrets. No one mentioned mine. And if that sounds selfish, fine, let it be. But the truth is, I had to rebuild everything from the ground up. Alone with no roadmap, no backup, no family safety net. Tessa. She lied. Then traveled the world on my college fund. While I was eating ramen with my roommates and working overnight shifts at a warehouse she was in Thailand finding herself. And now, after blowing through the money and coming back with nothing to show for it except an apartment she couldn't afford, cancer came knocking. That was her wake-up call. Mine came years ago with a suitcase and a one-way ticket to nowhere. So, no, I wasn't going to delete my post. I wasn't going to make a public statement saying, "She apologized privately." We're good now because we weren't. I didn't want revenge, but I also didn't want silence. She already had 3 years of that. 3 years where everyone believed her story, and I had to keep my head down to survive. 3 years where I paid the price for her lie. And now they wanted me to pay more just to protect her reputation in her final days. I couldn't do it. I didn't want to. And deep down, I think they knew that. Because the messages got more desperate, then more aggressive, then stopped altogether. That's when I knew something had shifted. They weren't trying to talk to me anymore. They were talking about me. I got a text from one of my old friends, someone who'd reached out after seeing my post. She said, "Tessa's inner circle was spinning the story now, saying that I was spiteful, obsessed, even mentally unstable. The usual hits. They said I was weaponizing the truth, that I was using her illness as an excuse to get back at her. And I just sat there reading those words, and for the first time since this whole thing started, I laughed. Not because it was funny, because it was pathetic. They weren't defending her because she was right. They were defending her because they didn't want to admit they were wrong. It's easier to paint me as bitter than admit they helped ruin someone's life. But I didn't care anymore. Because I wasn't fighting for their approval. I was fighting for my own peace. And guess what? I was finally starting to feel it. After the dust settled, after the inboxes went quiet, and the guilt messages stopped trickling in, I started breathing differently. It's strange how silence can feel so different depending on who controls it. The silence I lived in for 3 years, that was prison. But this was peace. Not because everything was perfect now, but because the noise wasn't coming from people trying to bury the truth anymore. It was just life, simple, steady, real. I was still working, still sharing an apartment with the same 2 guys who'd become more like brothers than roommates, still saving money, still thinking about college, even if I hadn't taken the leap yet. But something inside me had changed. Something I didn't fully notice until one weekend out of nowhere, I got a message from the same friend who first reached out after I posted my story. "Hey, everyone's getting together next weekend. We'd love to see you, if you're up for it." I stared at the message for a long time. My first instinct was to say no. I hadn't been back to my hometown since the day I left. I wasn't sure I ever wanted to. But the more I thought about it, the more I realized I wasn't scared of going back. I was scared of what it might stir up. Memories, anger, old ghosts. But I wasn't that version of me anymore. I asked my roommates what they thought, half hoping they'd talk me out of it. Instead, they offered to come with me. "Not to babysit," Jake said, "just so you don't walk into that alone." So, we planned it. Just a weekend. No announcements. No reunions with the people who burned me. Just the people who remembered me for me and wanted to see the version of me who made it through the fire. We drove down Friday night. I hadn't realized how much had changed until I saw the skyline again. Small town silhouettes lit up against the dark, looking almost unfamiliar. It felt like a place frozen in time. Everything looked the same, but I knew I was different now. We stayed at my old friend Nolan's place. He wouldn't let me get a hotel even though I offered like 3 times. His exact words were, "You've slept in a rat hole warehouse basement. You're not paying to sleep now." Classic Nolan. The weekend was healing. There's no other word for it. We didn't talk about the scandal. We didn't sit around rehashing the past like some courtroom drama. We just lived, laughed, played games, ate way too much food. I got to meet new partners, hear new life updates, and feel something I hadn't felt in years: belonging. It didn't matter that I'd been gone for 3 years. It didn't matter that we'd lost touch. These were people who still saw me as me, not the accused, not the exiled, not the black sheep, just me. At one point, late Saturday night, when half the group had gone to bed, I stepped outside for air. The stars were brighter there, quieter. Jake came out a few minutes later and sat next to me on the porch. "You good?" he asked. "Yeah," I said, "better than I've been in a long time." He nodded. "You know you could start fresh here if you wanted." "People get it now." "I know," I said. "But I don't think I need to come back. I think I just needed to know I could." That was the truth. I didn't want to move back. I didn't want to reclaim the life that got stolen. I'd built something else, something better, even if it was harder. But being here, seeing these people again, feeling that warmth, it reminded me that not everything I lost was gone forever. Some things just waited until I was ready. When I finally said goodbye on Sunday, it didn't feel like a farewell. It felt like a chapter closing. Not in a bitter way, more like a full stop after a long, painful sentence. I left with hugs, good memories, and a promise to visit again. No guilt. No ghosts. Just me walking forward. But not everything was peaceful. A week after I got home, I got another message. From my mother. I hesitated before opening it. I thought I had her blocked, but I guess she found a way through. "Burner number, probably?" The message was short, just a few sentences. "We heard you were back in town. I'm glad people were kind. I hope it reminded you that we used to be kind too. We miss you." I didn't know how to respond, or if I even should. Because here's the thing. I don't hate my parents. I never did. Even after they betrayed me, even after they stripped me of everything I had, I wanted to hate them. But hate requires too much energy. And I've spent enough of my life carrying emotions I didn't choose. What I feel now is distance. Not coldness, just distance. Like I finally put down something I'd been carrying too long. And now I'm not sure I could pick it back up even if I wanted to. So I didn't reply. Not to punish them, just to protect myself. Because if I let them back in and they hurt me again, that would be on me. And I'm not ready to take that chance. Tessa, meanwhile, is still alive. Barely, from what I've heard. Hospice care limited. Visitors, the whole thing. I haven't heard directly from her. I don't expect to. People keep asking if I want to see her before she goes. I don't know how to explain this without sounding cruel, but no, I don't. Not because I want her to die alone, but because I already said goodbye to the person I thought she was. The person who laughed with me when we were kids, who shared snacks and stories and secrets. That version of her died the day she chose to lie. And the version that's left, the one who confessed because she had no choice, not because she had remorse. That's not someone I need closure from. I already got it. I got it from the friends who stood by me, from the people who reached out, from the nights I cried alone and still woke up the next day to keep going, from the job I worked to get out of a toxic house, from the guys who split rent with me when I had nothing. I got closure, not because of some dramatic final confrontation, but because I found a life outside the shadow they tried to trap me in. And I like who I am now, so no, I'm not going back. Not for one last visit. Not for one last conversation. Not even for one last apology. Some things don't need to be reopened. They just need to be released. It's strange how the worst things in your life can shape you more than anything else and still not define you. I think about that a lot now. I used to wonder what kind of person I might have been if that night never happened. If Tessa hadn't lied. If my parents had believed me. If I'd gone to college like I'd planned, kept my old friends, lived a simple, predictable life. But then I realized that version of me never existed. Not really. The person I became, the one telling this story now, only came out because I was forced to rebuild from nothing. And somehow that feels more mine than anything that came before. I haven't heard anything new about Tessa in weeks. Last I heard, she was still breathing, still slipping, but there wasn't much time left. It's weird how that kind of news used to tie me in knots. Now it just passes through me, like wind. I acknowledge it, feel it brush past my skin, and then let it go. I'm not numb. I'm just done bleeding for people who never bled for me. My parents tried to contact me again recently. This time, it was a handwritten letter that almost broke me. I won't lie. Seeing my mom's handwriting again, something about it punched straight into my chest. I held the envelope for a long time before opening it like it might catch fire in my hands. The letter wasn't dramatic. No big declarations, just a quiet, almost timid update. They said they respected my silence, but wanted me to know that they'd started therapy, that they'd been going weekly together. They admitted that they failed me. Those words were underlined. We failed you. Not we were confused. Not we were trying our best. Just a raw, honest statement that didn't make excuses. They said they'd told their side of the family the truth. No more hiding, no more. He needed space. Just the truth. As it happened, they didn't ask for forgiveness. They didn't try to coax me into a reunion. They just said they were sorry, and that they were going to keep trying even if I never responded. I put the letter down and cried for the first time in a long, long time. Not the kind of cry that takes you out at the knees, but the quiet kind. The kind where the tears roll without sound. It wasn't grief. It wasn't even sadness, really. It was release. That letter didn't fix anything. It didn't erase the pain or the years lost. But it felt real. It felt like the first time in years they saw me not as a problem to be solved or a reputation to protect, but as their son. The boy they turned away from when he needed them most. And that was enough for me. Not to reconnect. Not to go back. But to let go of the part of me that had been holding on to their absence like it was some kind of punishment. I didn't realize how heavy that weight was until it started to lift. Now, I'm good. Not perfect. Not healed in every corner, but good. The kind of good where I wake up without a knot in my chest, where I can plan for the future without feeling like I'm running from the past, where I can laugh, really laugh, and not feel like I'm borrowing joy that doesn't belong to me. A few weeks ago, my roommates and I celebrated our 3rd year of living together. We went out to a rooftop bar in the city, watched the skyline shift from golden to neon and toasted to surviving things we never thought we'd get through. I'm proud of us, Malik said, holding up his glass. Jake nodded. Hell yeah, no one's coming to save us. We saved ourselves. And that hit me harder than anything. Because they were right. No one handed us a roadmap. No one came to clean up the wreckage. We found each other in the middle of our own storms and decided to hold on, build something better, and keep going. That's what real family looks like to me now. Not blood. Choice. And I'm choosing peace. That peace doesn't mean forgetting. It doesn't mean pretending. The bad things never happened. It means carrying the lessons, not the wounds. It means owning my story, every painful, unfair, messy part of it, and not letting it own me. Sometimes I still get DMs from strangers who read my post. Some say they went through something similar. Others just say thank you for speaking up, for not staying quiet, for showing that healing is possible, even if it's not perfect. One message stood out recently. It was from someone who said they'd been falsely accused too, said they never told anyone their side because they figured no one would believe them. But after reading my story, they decided to try. They wanted to speak. That one hit me different, because it reminded me why I did all this in the first place. Not for revenge, not for pity, just so the truth could exist somewhere outside of my own head, outside of the shame they tried to lock me in, just so someone else someday might not feel so alone. And maybe that's all we can really do in the end. Tell the truth. Hold it up to the light. And let it be enough storytime to I took them all to Hawaii by plane. They made reservations for me in a hotel an hour away. We don't want you here just because you paid, I didn't dispute when my brother made a joke. Simply left something in the hotel safe while grinning. They screamed when they discovered it. It was meant to be the excursion that made all the difference. I had organized an actual family trip for the first time in years. It was a leisurely long weekend in my flat. Thanksgiving wasn't a tumultuous time when everyone shouted about politics, a beautiful leisurely sunset, an excursion that creates memories. I planned it for 11 months. No hyperbole. I made folders. I created spreadsheets. I looked into credit card points and group prices. I cross-checked shoulder season weather patterns, evaluated beaches based on kid-friendliness and accessibility, and contrasted resorts. To be sure I wasn't being duped, I even paid a tiny consultation charge to a travel agency, because this wasn't just for me. I wanted it to be flawless for them. For Jill, my mother, who hadn't had a true holiday in more than 10 years. For my stepfather, Rick, who put in extra hours at the car business and spoke of Hawaii as if it were a fantastical land he would never see. For my younger brother, Brandon, and his wife, Haley, who managed to attend Christmas despite their financial difficulties and their constant appearance of worry and exhaustion. And for my cousin, Erin, and her young son, Liam. It was his first time aboard an airplane. I wanted to show him the sea. All my life, I had been the dull one accountable. Nathan, keep quiet, Nathan. The person who remembers everyone's birthdays and arrived with jumper wires. However, there's a chance that this trip will be the one time they notice anything more about me, someone of whom they were proud. I wasn't wealthy. Not at all. I live in a little apartment, work there, and provide for my family. I set up money for this vacation in the same manner that some individuals do for a wedding. Other plans were canceled, refused to accept the dentist's improvements, omitted birthdays, dates declined. This 1 week in Hawaii is what I've been aiming for, as if it were a race's finish line. Nobody else was aware that I was jogging. My heart was thus filled with joy when we touched down and stepped out into the steamy, plumeria-scented air. This is it, I thought. Taking a big breath, our Lees arrived. The embarrassing group photo was taken to assist with the baggage. I gave the shuttle driver a gratuity in advance. Everybody was grinning. For once, Brandon appeared at ease, which caused Liam to chuckle with unflattering pirate impersonation. The property looked just like the photos when we pulled up. Better perhaps, swaying green palms and white columns. The type of gentle golden light that gives everything the appearance of a tourism advertisement. I was eager to show everyone how beautifully I had prepared it, so I walked up to the check-in counter. The rooms faced the ocean. I had prepared welcome baskets filled with reef-safe sunscreen and regional goodies. For the third night, I had even reserved a beach meal in advance. The receptionist gave a kind grin. Name Fielding Nathan. The Fielding family group was reserved by me. She scowled as she wrote and looked at the screen. Although your name isn't on the room list, I can see that the group reservation is here. You have a different reservation, Motel Royal Sands. My smile wavered. No, it is incorrect. I made all of the reservations in my name. She showed me the breakdown by slightly tilting the screen. All the names were listed. Jill, Rick, Brandon, Haley, Aaron, Liam. Not mine, though. Confused. I glanced up. Then, as if he owned the property, Brandon came over with 2 room keys. "Oh," he said. "Your site has been moved up the road to a more peaceful location. I assumed you would want privacy." Uncertain if it was a joke, I laughed. "Hold on, what?" He was accompanied by Haley. "I'm wearing sunglasses already. Isn't it better that way? The motel is quite near." "Only 1 hour," I blinked. "Why would I choose to remain at a motel?" Brandon gave a shrug. "Look, we don't want you here all the time simply because you paid." He spoke as though it were amusing, as if he were making fun of my carry-on while we were still at baggage claim. Haley laughed. "Don't be strange about it, please." Strange, isn't it? Naturally. At last, Jill took over. She appeared to be preparing for drama with her arms crossed. "It's not a huge issue, honey. There just wasn't enough space for everyone." Aaron also expressed a strong desire to be with us. "You, too, prefer silence, don't you? You have always been self-sufficient." Self-sufficient, unwanted is the nice term for it. "You'll feel more at ease there anyhow," Rick said, avoiding eye contact. And I realized they had all decided behind my back while I stood there with my bag in that swanky, pricey lobby. I could have opposed it after I paid for everything. "Actually, no, I booked this," is what I could have said. I am deserving of this place. However, I choked on the words. My cheeks felt heated and my heart was racing in my ears. Rather, I gave a nod. "Yes," I replied. "It sounds serene." After obtaining the updated address from the front desk, I pushed my bag out the side door, past the well-kept hibiscus shrubs and the valet and bellhop. When I informed the Uber driver where I was going, he looked at me. "That location." "Are you certain?" I grinned, as if it made no difference. "Yes." The hotel was... I'm sure. It did have a roof, though. I'll give it that. The stench of unsolved crime and air freshener filled the room. Technically, the beach access was correct. If you didn't mind traversing a parking lot and 2 roads to reach the sandy strip, the feel of the blanket seemed oddly sticky. I didn't want to look into it. All that was visible was a fading sign with half the lamps out and a decrepit vending machine. "Sands of Royalty. Take your time." With my luggage still closed, I sat on the side of the bed and gazed at the wall for a while. I continued to wait for a call to admit that they had aired, to say "gotcha" and laugh. "Are you really going to stay with us?" Return. Nothing. I considered the small presents I had brought for each person. Puzzles with a Hawaiian theme for Liam Mom's collection of local teas Brandon had mentioned wanting a water-safe phone cover. I still had them zipped in my well-wrapped. On the first night, I had pictured giving them out over cocktails by the pool. Everyone was pleasantly pleased and laughed. I was alone myself, instead, listening to a couple in the adjacent room quarrel about whether the kid resembled her ex more or not. I put on my flip-flops and had a shower. I found it difficult to unload. For some reason, I woke up early the following morning and took another Uber back to the resort. That the atmosphere had changed. Perhaps they had had time to see how foolish everything was. They could recall who made the travel arrangements today. I may be seated at the table. When I arrived, they were already eating breakfast. I'm laughing, calmed. I had heard Brandon repeat a tale from me years before, and he was wearing a colorful Hawaiian shirt. Haley wore her sunglasses like a crown on her head. Liam was being held by Jill as she gave him fresh mango nibbles. Nobody saw me approach. "Hello, trying to seem breezy," I said. "Good morning," Jill gave a hazy smile. "We had no idea you were coming." "Nathan," I said. "I thought I'd catch up with you all. What's planned for today?" Rick gave Brandon a quick look. "We're considering going to the beach." "The trek later, perhaps." I gave a nod. "Where should we meet?" Haley's head cocked. "Oh well, we assumed you would choose to be independent." I covered the cost of the group snorkeling excursion. Quietly, I reminded them. Isn't it too? Brandon chewed while he spoke. We may simply forego that. Instead, Aaron would like to take Liam to the aquarium I was about to speak when I opened my lips. However, what I knew, Rick detested boats, but he agreed to attend since Jill was thrilled that I had laminated itineraries prepared for everyone, so I spent hours making reservations just for them. I'm still foolishly snuggled in my backpack, I said. Cool, instead. Whatever is effective. The table was completely occupied. They have great coffee, Haley replied, pointing to the pool bar. In case you wish to seize something. I gave another nod. Then, before anyone could say another thing, I turned to go. They wouldn't have, in fact, with sunglasses on and towels slung over their shoulders, they were already heading for the beach, as if I didn't exist. However, I made a silent left turn into the resort lobby rather than going to the pool bar or the shuttle stop. Like a wall, the air conditioner struck me. After the heat outdoors, it was nearly too chilly, yet it was beneficial. It gave me mental clarity. I moved toward the front desk. It was the same woman from check-in. She seems taken aback by my return visit. Is there anything I can leave in the hotel safe? I inquired. Naturally, do you want to arrange a code for pickup? No, I said. For the Fielding family, simply mark it. Please deliver it to them if I don't attend breakfast tomorrow. She hesitated, but didn't inquire, just registered the request and gave me a security envelope. I put a lid on it, gave it to her, and gave her a kind thank you. Outside, I stopped beside a palm tree and saw my family from afar. In the sand. Brandon was attempting to teach Liam how to perform a handstand. Rick and Joe were posing for a picture, like a movie. Extra Haley was drinking from a coconut. I wasn't waiting for their attention anymore, but they didn't even look my way. They were unaware of my previous actions. I had no clue that following their little jest, I had gone back to the motel, entered into all of my booking accounts, and began stealthily removing everything. The catamaran cruises, hotel extensions, excursions, and inter-island flights. Brandon would not stop talking about how everything was gone, something that would ensure they knew exactly what they had thrown away was now hidden within the hotel safe. I could already imagine the moment they opened it, but I wasn't sure which would be more painful, the cancellations or the words I left with them. The quiet, the first bewilderment, and finally the yelling. Allow them to savor their morning. It was the final freebie they would give me. Hawaii wasn't the only topic. When people hear stories like these, they fail to understand that. It never begins with a hotel room or a trip. It begins in the quiet times when you discover you're not the favorite years ago. Not the amusing one, the golden child. No, just the helpful one. The first time I felt it, I was 8 years old. My Lego tower had been inadvertently overturned by Brandon. I had spent a week creating a very intricate one. When I told my mother, he laughed, called it dumb, and left. Her eyes hardly left the dishes. Nathan, don't be so dramatic. You are older than him. Simply construct another one. The template was that Brandon shatters it. I reconstruct it. I remember something you forgot. He overspends. I pay the bill in silence. And I always get a pat on the shoulder and a reminder to be the bigger person when I ask for even the slightest recognition. I therefore grew into the larger person Dad left, so I took over. When Mom remarried, I assisted Rick in moving in. Brandon and I created flashcards for his final algebra test. I gave him my car to use. That night, I paid the Uber bill. He lost his wallet after getting completely inebriated. I didn't voice any complaints. I genuinely think that's what family did, so not once. And I believe that in some tiny way, I believed that if I continued to act morally, they would eventually notice me. They were proud of someone, not just the helpful brother or the courteous son who sent thank you notes and remembered birthdays. However, each time I mentioned something I wanted to do, I mentioned things like traveling, changing careers, or moving out of state. The same thing happened every time. Look for Mom. Be confused and worried. Like I just told her I wanted to become a magician. But who would help with Brandon if something came up? What about your sister-in-law's doctor's appointment? You promised to drive her. You're the stable one. You're not like Brandon. He's sensitive. Sensitive, that was the word. They used to excuse everything when he yelled at me for forgetting to pack his charger for a weekend trip. Sensitive. When he ghosted Haley for 2 weeks early in their relationship, and I had to lie to her face about why he wasn't texting back sensitive when he crashed his car after leaving a bar and called me instead of the police sensitive. But me. I was solid. A rock, our Nathan. He always handles everything. The fact is, I didn't mind assisting. Not at first. I like being dependable. I appreciate being the man people trust. But it started to chip away at me when I realized it wasn't love holding that structure together. It was expectancy, obligation, guilt. Like when I paid for Erin's moving truck, when her ex left and she sobbed, stating I was the only one who'd been there for her. Then she didn't ask me to her son's birthday because there weren't enough chairs. Or when Mom contacted me in the middle of a work meeting because she wanted help contesting a medical bill, then failed to call back for my birthday a week later. Or when Brandon stated he was proud of me, for once, the day I was promoted. In the same sentence, he asked whether I could give him rent money. Giving them something lovely wasn't the only reason for the Hawaii trip. It served as a test. I wasn't confident enough to ask the question out. Would they finally treat me like I cared if I gave them everything I had? My response, immediately. After breakfast on the second day, I returned to the motel and sat on the edge of the bed, gazing at the Royal Sands motel receipt. Of course, I had paid for that as well. I had paid the price when I was sent there, even though it wasn't in the original plan. Why wouldn't I? I do that. I felt the type of silent rage that doesn't appear on your face as I gazed at the $26 or $72. It simply becomes ingrained in your bones. I opened my laptop at that point, signed in, pulled up the itinerary for the trip. I was more knowledgeable than my own job schedule. I called off the snorkeling excursion. Inter-island flights to Maui were canceled. Mom claimed the helicopter flight was too much, so they called it off, but she privately boasted to her church group about it. Canceled the rental car I had booked for the day, vacation that Brandon and Haley were taking. After that, I went into my inbox and deleted all of the stored traveler profiles save for mine. I requested that my card be taken off the account for any upcoming incidentals in a brief note to the resort's billing office. It was similar, like turning off switches in a house I had left. I went back by the resort later that evening to see if I could sense anything. Not to spy anger. I'm sorry, jealousy. Rather, I experienced clarity. They were drinking and joking while they sat by the pool. Brandon was presiding over the court, naturally narrating a tale that might or might not be true. Rick's arm was around Jill's shoulder as she wore a shawl, and they both shone in the dim light. I was not in that picture, but I could have been. As usual, I remained there for a minute, unseen. Then instead of going back to the motel, I turned and headed back toward the road. Not yet. I wasn't finished. I had no intention of arguing. I had no intention of begging. I intended to allow them to walk straight into it. As they arranged their ideal day, let them enjoy their beverages. Let them believe that I was still recovering at a low-cost hotel. They were unaware that the rug had already been removed from underfoot. I hoped that the yelling would be loud enough to reach the coastline when they opened the package. At 9:12 a.m., the first communication arrived the next day. Are you around, Nathan? Your name does not appear on the catamaran manifest. Has the tour been canceled? Erin sent it. Courteous. Perplexed. I'm still holding out hope that this was really an error. I didn't answer. Brandon phoned. At 9:24, I saw the screen come on once and then go off twice. A group text message appeared at 9:28. Did you call off our helicopter flight? Brandon, I poured myself another cup of hotel coffee and placed the phone face down on the nightstand. Burned bitter excellent. Sometime after breakfast, I suppose the resort personnel would have given it over as soon as they opened the envelope, just how I requested. I think someone murmured, weird, and shrugged. Perhaps he left a thank you letter and without thinking tore it open. The video would then begin. It's just me sitting quietly and neatly on the hotel bed. Hello, you already know that something is amiss if you're seeing this. Your remaining travel has been canceled. All flights, excursions, hotel extensions, costs, and plans have been deleted. Before you inquire why, I'll spare you the trouble. Because you didn't want me there, you made reservations for me at a motel an hour away. Despite not being a member of the family, you made jokes about how I paid. You expected me to remain silent, as I always do. Not this time, though. Take it easy and enjoy the remainder of your visit. Do not be concerned. I departed from the dawn. It's the only free thing here. Cut to black. No accusations, no shouting, just a nuclear bomb that is courteous. My phone had 14 missed calls, 3 voicemails, and a really insane wall of Brandon's messages by 10:01 a.m. Brandon, this isn't funny. You're acting insanely. Brandon, come of age. Brandon. Mom was humiliated by you, Brandon. Everyone's whole trip was destroyed by you. What on earth is the matter with you? What's the matter with me? We'll see. 10 years of emotional work without compensation, financial aid for 5 years. And that trip to Hawaii when I ended up in a hotel on the side of the road as if they didn't want to bring their bags inside. I suppose I did snap by 10:34. Joe gave a call. I listened to the message later, but I didn't respond. She was trembling as she said, "I'm not sure what occurred. Nathan, my love. I assumed that having your own place made you happy. We didn't want to cause you to feel excluded. Could we please have a conversation? I'm afraid of you." That section nearly made me giggle, which scared her. All my life, these folks had gaslighted, ghosted, and guilt-tripped me. But now that I had finally stopped grinning through it, she was afraid. Soon later, Rick texted Rick. "Let's be sensible, guy, please. It was not necessary for you to go nuclear. That's rich coming from the man who stood next his wife at breakfast as she acted as if I didn't exist." Things got out of hand about midday. I received an email from the resort billing office confirming that the family had been informed and my card had been canceled. Now the remaining fees would be sent straight to their rooms if they were able to make a legitimate payment, which was an issue based on another message I received from Aaron. "Why would you do this?" "Aaron, since you claimed to have covered everything, none of us brought extra cards. Liam is in tears. Today we are unable to even visit the aquarium." I laughed, but I didn't answer. After that, I looked through the remarks on Brandon's previous evening Instagram post. The beach photo of him without a shirt. Vacation mode with captions on bro didn't even cover his own hotel expenses, according to a statement made by someone. Imagine being so devastated when your brother cancels your trip in the middle of the week. Evidently, the account was posted online by someone at the resort, possibly a staff member or a visitor. When the family freeloader is eventually interrupted, the TikTok title is brief. It was exploding up already. The wording had abruptly changed from indignation to despair. By dusk, Haley couldn't enter the second chamber. "The card was denied," they stated, Jill. "Please, Nathan. We didn't anticipate that it would cause you such pain. Come back and chat to us, Rick. This is something we can resolve." "I think you're dead." "Brandon? Really?" "Brandon, you are no longer wanted in this family, Brandon. That's why you're by yourself. It was there, the deck's final card. You're by yourself." Like I didn't know previously, as like I hadn't experienced it each time they chuckled without me planned, without my input. I lived as though I were a supporting character in their major narrative. The thing Brandon never understood, though, is this. Even though I was by myself, I wasn't lonely. No more sitting across from your own mother while she expresses gratitude to your brother for bringing everyone together is a sign of loneliness, even if you made all of the travel arrangements. Realizing that no one reserved a place for you at breakfast makes you feel lonely. Nobody even acknowledged your absence. Peace is the result of isolation. That evening, I took a plain window seat. I have no one at my side. While I saw the islands below go, I placed an order for a drink. Gorgeous in the last of the light green and gold. Somewhere, they were still there, frantically trying to determine who would pay. Still shouting, finger-pointing continues. I'm still curious about how things went, so incorrect. What's the best part? They were still unaware of it. However, this was more than simply a ruined holiday. The previous agreement was over. No more silent assistance, no more co-signing loans, no more monthly transfers, and no more making up lost rent. Picking up the fragments is over. I was finished. And then they arrived home and faced reality. Credit cards reached their maximum limit. Rescheduled flights, unpaid bills. News is getting out. Since I wouldn't be there to catch them when they fell for the first time in my life, I prayed it hit hard. 2 days passed in quiet. Perhaps that was it, I thought. Perhaps they were so taken aback, I'm very ashamed, they would simply vanish. It would have been all right. Actually, more than fine, tidy. Easy. However, no. Day 3. The spin machine came into action. A post on Brandon's Instagram story was the first step to spoil a single trip. Some individuals wait their whole lives. I hope it was worthwhile, my friend. Then Jill posted a mysterious status on Facebook. Families aren't flawless, but love, not harshness, makes us stronger. The complete PR trip followed. Haley sent a few extended family members a lengthy, well-written email. She did CC folks, yes. She presented it as an unfortunate miscommunication. A booking error made Nathan feel left out, so he abruptly canceled our entire vacation. It was devastating. The trauma is still being processed by us. A traumatic event. I suppose the system couldn't handle 3 nights in a mid-range chain hotel close to the airport. Yes, that is how their ideal vacation came to an end, with the hope that someone would ultimately pay the fees. They made an effort to remain at the original resort. He's our brother, Brandon informed the front desk. He'll make it right. Like I was a lost towel service. The crew was prepared, but not the man who silently closed the door behind them. I didn't have a reservation. I had lost my card. Everything was in writing. By midday, 2 rooms were locked. Their luggage was still unzipped when they were led to the lobby by resort security. The choice to pay out of pocket was presented to them. They checked out since they couldn't. At a motel close to the airport, they slept for the last 3 nights of their trip in a single room with 2 double beds and a rollaway cot with tepid breakfast eggs and no access to the beach. I am aware of this because a resort employee who witnessed the entire event sent me a private email stating that everyone was cheering you on. It seems that the yelling was indeed loud enough to be heard on the beach. They did not go on the other outings. Maui was not visited. Brandon brags about the catamaran excursion, lost. When they canceled Liam's aquarium visit after attempting to coerce the ticket clerk into giving them free admission, Aaron sobbed in the lobby. Reality set in when it was time to return home. I had canceled the flights back as well. At the airport, they had to hurry and use whatever cards were still functional to pay for last-minute tickets. Twice Haley's was turned down. In the end, Rick used a credit card he said was solely for emergencies to pay for the majority of it. It turns out that you qualify for a free vacation if you lose it in the middle of the week because you upset the person who is paying for it. The tale had already gone viral by the time they touched down. A little TikTok was posted by someone at the resort. At last, the family freeloader is disconnected. Jill sobbing in a shaky image, Brandon shouting in the foyer, and Haley storming off with 2 inflatable pool floats in her hands. Within 48 hours, 500,000 views were obtained. It was a nasty comment area. At all costs, keep Nathan safe. You never bite the hand that pays for the helicopter tour because of this. A twist in the plot. The silent one wasn't Nathan. The loaded gun was him. Back home, the true desperation set in. They discovered that Hawaii wasn't the only place affected. I had terminated all continuing assistance. The money I send Jill each month. Lost the joint Costco membership I had been paying for was canceled. and Brandon had access to a just-in-case savings account. I emailed one last time. Easy final. With instant effect. I am no longer supporting any of this family financially or logistically. Please don't get in touch with me unless a lawyer is involved. That didn't sit well with them. Rick texted me passive-aggressively and included an image of a credit card bill. Your mom is having a lot of trouble. Rick, could you perhaps assist for her benefit? I didn't respond. Brandon captioned a picture of him and Jill sitting at a cafe. Family is meant to be forgiving. Once more, the remarks backfired. One of my friends said, "Didn't you boast about leaving your brother in a motel? I wish you well on your trip of forgiveness." They went full scorched earth after that. They tried to spread the myth that I had overreacted, that I had always been emotionally unstable, and that the entire situation was a part of a lengthy pattern of control by calling around to common acquaintances and extended family. If I hadn't previously made the video public, it could have succeeded. The original clip, which I had placed in the hotel safe, was posted. For context, it was only slightly altered. Just the facts, no comments, a clear message in a calm voice. I was not wanted by you. You are now on your own. The remainder was handled via the internet. A few of their pals ceased phoning. Jill lost her job as a part-time bookkeeper, someone who didn't want their little business to be associated with controversy after watching the video. Aaron's former partner used the circumstance to support his claim of full custody, pointing to his emotional instability and humiliation in public. Brandon attempted to speak his truth on a podcast. It had 2 dislikes and 4 views. In the meantime, I was doing well. I made travel arrangements to Kyoto, only me. No group conversation, no guilt. I slept better than I had in years, ate noodles at alleyway shops, and strolled among cherry blossoms. I began creating a new life with a smaller social group of calm individuals who appreciated my kindness. Not because it was my first time being convenient, I wasn't the building's pillar of support. All I had was freedom. 2 months later, Jill sent me her final communication. You despise us. I know that. All I ask is that you never forget that we are still your family. After staring at it for a while, I typed a line that had once had meaning and pushed submit. 9 months have passed since the trip without my assistance. Things quickly fell apart. Rick and my mom had trouble nearly right away. As it happens, I had been secretly maintaining their budget for longer than I had thought. To make up for what used to come for me, he took on gig labor. After a few unpleasant chats about how things went in Hawaii, she stopped taking calls from family members. In a few of weeks, Brandon spent his final emergency savings. Haley and her sister moved in together, just until he attempted crowdsourcing to get out of his rent problems and things stabilized. It didn't work out. Maybe don't ditch the guy paying for your vacation next time, was one of the most popular comments Aaron attempted to co-sign a loan. The family didn't want to touch it. She was living with her mother and working in retail when I last heard from her. I refrained from boasting. I didn't make contact. I simply moved on. When you quit footing the bill for everyone else's mayhem, serenity turns out to be both peaceful and reasonably priced. But now I'm wondering if I went too far or if I was correct to finally draw the line. Please share your thoughts in the comments section. Remember to subscribe if you'd want to hear more. Tales like this. 1. Story 3. You informed me that the family's trip had been rescheduled. It was for you, I said. My sister grinned. Thus, I reclaimed all of their money, prevented them from entering the property, and ensured that their baggage did not go anywhere. I apologize. What I remarked, looking at my sister on the other side of the corridor and blinking. The trip was postponed, you stated. Clara did not even bat an eye. With her glossy pink nails tapping languidly on the screen, she continued to scan through her phone. Then she gave me the arrogant, patronizing smirk I had known since I was a youngster. It was put off. Sweetly, she said. For you, the floor tilted under my feet. She informed me that the vacation had been canceled just 2 weeks prior. "Too costly," she had said. "That doesn't feel good. Let's aspire for next season," she added. However, I brought them. As I stood in our parents' home, still clutching the grocery bag, the suitcases were arranged in a queue at the door. I could hear our parents teasing, my brother boasting about his hotel upgrade, Clara yelling at me to pack the appropriate clothes, and laughing coming from the kitchen. Today they were going out without me. Believable. I put the bag down and mumbled, "All of you deceived me." My mom glanced up, then down at her t-shirt. My dad didn't even take his eyes off his phone. Nobody said anything. Clara simply shrugged as if it were insignificant. "You've been really busy lately," she observed in a phony, empathetic tone. "We believed you would value the privacy." "You're busy. The villa was reserved by me. Claire said her card was maxed out, so who sent her the deposit?" "The person who assisted our parents in renewing their passports and paid for the travel insurance. And they didn't simply leave me behind. They intended to exclude me." "I understand," I remarked in a low voice, so I paid the bill and was advised to enjoy my alone at home. Clara, obviously having fun, arched an eyebrow. "You often gripe about how stressed out you are by us. All we were doing was helping you." She spoke as though she were the story's protagonist. As if this hadn't been the last act of a long, gradual betrayal. I wanted to rant about everything I had done for them, to flip the kitchen table and to scream. However, I didn't. Rather, I grinned, which frightened her more than any tantrum could. "All right," I remarked as I reached for my keys. "Have fun on your brief journey." Her face wavered. "You're not angry," I laughed quietly. "No, I'm finished." She briefly appeared perplexed, then amused, and then again, for a brief period, anxious. However, it was too late. Her game had been played. It was my time now. What hurts the most, do you know, the fact that they had a lavish family vacation without me isn't the problem. The reason is that I paid for it, each and every component. It began half a year ago. Clara gave me one of her typical phony calls. "As siblings, let's bond." Feelings that ought to have been the first warning sign. In Crete, I came upon this stunning home. She said, "It offers private beach access and an infinity pool, and the chef's reviews will wow you." I chuckled. "You seem to be packed your luggage already." "Not just yet," she responded kindly. "Mom and Dad are a little out of their price range, and I don't want them to worry, you know?" "Perhaps we might enter jointly," I reasoned. "Me and you similar to a family present," how she spoke. We caused me to stop. However, she always knew how to use velvet words to dress up her leeches. I should have declined, but I chose not to. I was the trustworthy one, the steady one, the unseen framework supporting their mayhem. I thus sent the $1,000 deposit. Then there were unforeseen costs, flight modifications, and improvements to the rental car. Here's another $1,200. It was $1,700. My folks grinned like kings and queens when they learnt about the vacation. That shows a lot of maturity. "Good to see you finally stepping up," my mother replied. My father also added, "Thank you, but no. No offer to help." I was expected to be the family's pillar of support. Nevertheless, I didn't grumble. Not when Clara needed assistance making reservations for their boat rides. I convinced myself that I was doing it for the memories when my father requested me to simply contribute for the trip insurance. I never truly had a family for whatever reason. Now, however, I could now see how they truly felt about me, a way to achieve a goal, a wallet, a stand-in. The worst aspect. They weren't only dishonest, they planned it. Because I asked Mom in passing a week before the vacation, I take it that we're still set for the 14th. She blinked like though I had given her a slap. "Well, we're really delaying until August," Clara remarked. Something regarding sales during the off-season. After lying to my face, Clara instructed Mom to hide it. I attempted to defend it even then. Perhaps they simply neglected to inform me of the revised plan. There could have been an error the night before their trip. However, the reality erupted in my face. Clara was giggling, twirling with joy, and throwing swimming suits into a bag when I went by our parents' house to drop off some papers. She said bluntly, "Didn't think you'd be here." "It was postponed," you stated. Wearing fancy sunglasses. She had a devilish smirk. "It was for you." She said, "It's as if I weren't real at all, only a supporting role in her sitcom." I glanced towards the door. My father was packing the car with suitcases. I saw my mother pour champagne. Before they even got on the plane, they were having a party. Why, I inquired. Hardly more than a murmur, as if I were sluggish. Clara cocked her head. "Hurry up. Do you truly wish to attend? Everything is constantly ruined by you. You evaluate everyone while sitting in the corner. I don't mean to offend, but this journey needed to be short. No negative energy." I let out a brief, shattered, startled chuckle. "You stole my money then." "Your cash." She laughed. "Oh, please. Do you live alone? No wife, no children. You're spending it on what else?" Then, as if I were a coffee table, she rolled her eyes and walked away. I thought something was cracked. It wasn't anger, not quite yet. It was quieter, sharper, and colder within me like a wire. At last it came loose. I left without saying anything. However, I didn't sleep that night. I refrained from crying. I didn't shout. I had a plan. I launched all the apps. Each reservation. Each and every invoice. Each and every login. And I discovered something lovely, since I was the owner of everything. The catering, the rental vehicle, and the villa. Even the heating of the pool. They had desired my invisibility. They ought to have ensured that I had lost the keys to their realm. I thus called the concierge, blocked their phones, canceled the groceries, delivery, changed the locks, and entered into the rental website. I sent the driver a kind email. "This reservation's guests have been withdrawn. There is no need for an airport pickup." I then waited for my phone to blow up for the commotion and for the screaming, since they believed I was the idiot. They didn't realize I was the one with the matches, and I had had enough of them stepping all over me. They traveled. I exacted my retribution. However, blocking their phone numbers from the concierge or canceling their property access proved insufficient. No, there was one more item they needed, the bags. You see, there was one fatal fault in his brilliant scheme. She asked me to make all the reservations. Everything for their fragile belongings. This includes the international luggage service. "I want the luggage delivered directly to the villa," she said. "You are aware of how famous people do it. It is picked up from the airport and dropped off at the destination by this service that I discovered. Can you simply take it, like an excessive number of emails?" So I took care of it. I signed in. I located the reservation. The delivery is planned for tomorrow at 11 a.m. Excellent. After a long, satisfying moment of staring at the blank field after clicking Edit Location, I typed in a mortgage. Greece's silent goat farm. Yes, a real place. In the middle of nowhere. Surrounded by mountains. Even a special instruction note is attached. The owner would rather not be contacted. Simply place your bags by the fence. Avoid upsetting the animals. I had to sit down because I was laughing so much. I had a mental image of it already. My sister's luxury suitcase, my mother's essential oils, and my father's golf set. Filled with compulsive attention. They are now climbing a dirt road that leads to a goat sanctuary. Lyrical. Naturally, I ensured that there were no refunds. After dispatch, no modifications are permitted. They would only have their hand luggage when they landed. A magazine, perhaps. A bar of granola. 2 pillows for the neck. I leaned back and shut the laptop. In years. For the first time, the joke didn't sit well with me. Indeed, they were. It was 6:12 a.m. when the call began local time. I was eating cereal. The first was from my mother, declined. Then Clara, then my father, then Clara, again. They were getting desperate. Eventually, I caved. Not to talk, just to listen. I hit answer and stayed silent. Clara's voice exploded out of the speaker. "Where is my stuff?" I took a slow sip of my coffee. "Probably somewhere scenic," I said calmly. "Maybe a nice mountain view? Perfect for reflection." "You sent our bags to a farm," she shrieked. "A goat farm," I corrected. "Don't worry, I hear they're very respectful with fragile items." She made a sound somewhere between a scream and a gasp. "You're unbelievable," says the woman who planned a vacation behind my back and used my bank account to do it. My dad got on the phone. "We're stuck here with nothing," he barked. "You embarrassed this family." "No," I said flatly. "You embarrassed yourselves. I'm just returning the favor." Then I hung up, and this time I blocked their numbers. The texts rolled in from unknown numbers. Emotional blackmail on loop. "This is Mom. I'm using Claire's phone. Please call me. We're in trouble. You've made your point. Fix this before it gets worse. We'll pay you back. Just send the luggage back, please." But the goat farm doesn't do returns. "I know?" I called to ask. The owner sounded confused but cheerful, so the bags arrived in good condition. "Very strange delivery. But my goats enjoy the company," he said in broken English. "One of them sleep on purple back." I nearly dropped the phone from laughing. So now they were stuck in paradise, no clothes, no toiletries, no Wi-Fi. I revoked their code, no fridge service. I canceled the grocery drop-off, no driver. He'd already been told they weren't welcome and no one to beg. I burned the bridge, then salted the ground. All they had was time and each other. No distractions, no servants, no access, just silence, the kind I dreamed of for years. And as I danced barefoot in my kitchen, music playing, the sun shining through the window, I smiled. Because for once, I wasn't the fool I was. The storm. They came home 3 days early, sunburned, exhausted, defeated. I was sitting on the porch when they pulled into the driveway like survivors of some emotional war. Clara jumped out of the car, first, red-faced hair in a messy bun. Her designer sunglasses askew. "You!" she snapped, storming at me like a baby in meltdown mode. "What is wrong with you?" I sat sipping lemonade. "Clara," I remarked, nodding respectfully. "How was the farm?" Her scream might have smashed glass. We were embarrassed. "Do you have any clue what you've done? You mean other than paying for a family trip I wasn't invited to?" My mother appeared next, lugging 2 carry-ons and looking like she hadn't slept since Athens. Her visage shifted between remorse and wrath. "You humiliated us," she shouted. "No," I responded coolly. "I gave you a glimpse of my feelings during the past decade, pretending to be occupied with untangling straps. My father remained close to the trunk. He avoided looking at me." Clara crossed her arms. "For nothing. You went nuclear. We didn't want to spend a week with your gloomy vibe, which is why you're so resentful." I put down the drink and slowly got to my feet. I didn't raise my voice, I didn't yell. Every syllable had to hit like a brick for me. "Clara, you lied to me. My money was stolen by you. You treated me like a mute button on a Visa card. Then you went away. You rejoiced in abandoning me. Don't just sit there and moan about the lack of energy, when a whole vacation was based on treachery." She parted her lips to respond, then close it once again. "How about you?" I turned to face my mom and stated that you led her to do it as you sat there covered for her. I lied to my face. "She's your golden girl, that's why. And I'm simply what the giver, the sun stand-in." Her mouth quivered. "It wasn't our intention." "You never mean it." "That's the issue. It's never true. Don't be straightforward, expectations only." "You're surprised now that I've finally stopped complying." My father finally said anything. "Your family still includes us." "No, you were," I said. "However, one of their own is not viewed as a disposable wallet by families." Clara moved nearer once again and gestured at my face. "You consider yourselves so honorable. This was enjoyable to you. You intended for us to suffer." Yes, I did exactly. She blinked. Do you really think I didn't like seeing karma return the favor for once after all the years of your arrogant remarks, your sense of entitlement, and the way you control others to act as though you're a member of a royal family? Clara appeared to be about to blow up. She growled. I have done nothing but try to keep this family together. No, I lost my temper. Every effort has been made to keep me out of it. After a long period of time, a soft voice whispered, She's right, from behind the SUV. Everybody turned. It was Clara's husband, Alex. I had no idea he was at home. He seemed worn out. Shoulders drooped. His eyes had dark shadows under them. What do you know, sweetie? His gaze was fixed on Clara as he spoke. I have been quiet enough. He is correct in every way. Please pardon me, Clara spat out. You mistreat him, you are trash to everyone. You gaslight, you guilt, you then weep about being the victim. Clara's lips moved back and forth. He said, I saw the texts. The entire affair was planned by you. You desired to keep him out. Claimed to be tired of his buzzkill enthusiasm. My mother let out a gasp. You? Then took his money. After finishing, Alex chuckled. He faced me. I apologize. Dude, I ought to have spoken up sooner. I simply nodded. I wasn't confident in my voice. Clara was frozen there face to face. At last, she broke down. This family is crazy. She let out a scream. After everything I've done, you're all betraying me. That's right. After everything I said, I walked over to the door. I'm finished. This was the final action. Taken. My mother asked in a low voice. Your hierarchy, your games, and your silence are all yours to keep. I no longer participate in it. You can't simply leave. My father snarled. Observe me. I entered the house, picked up my already packed suitcase, and made one final turn at the door. I mentioned the goat that slept on your back. Hector is his name. He wishes you well. After that, I departed. I woke up to an odd sight the following morning. Quiet. No voicemails that make you feel guilty or a buzzing phone. No demands for cash. No pings in the group chat. No. Could you please just assist us with the refrigerator's hum? The light breeze through the open window. A world without obligation. I lay in bed and stared at the ceiling. And for the first time in years, I smiled without forcing it. I didn't hear from them for 2 weeks. It was glorious. No Clara, no dramatic texts, no cryptic posts on social media. My parents didn't call my father. The head of the household went back to ignoring me like he always had, unless I was paying a bill. But the best part, I didn't care. I cleaned out my apartment, got rid of things that weighed me down, took time off work. I wanted the beach by myself, but a stupidly expensive milkshake without justifying it. I didn't have to save it for someone else's vacation anymore. I was alive. Then came the email subject line. Let's discuss for Mom. No, hi. No, I miss you. Just, you've made your point. But this is still your family. Clara is devastated. She's in treatment now. We hope you'll come around before things become worse. Dad believes it's time to put this behind us. Maybe Sunday supper next week? I gazed at the screen. They were still using the same script, still playing the same rules. Only now they didn't have a stage or an audience. I clicked archive without commenting. Naturally, though, life never allows the drama to end quietly. I received a call from an unidentified number a few days later. Normally, I wouldn't respond to those, but I did. Hello, this is Clara's husband, Alex. I remained silent. Simply wait. I apologize for disturbing you. Clara departed, even though I know you probably don't want to hear this. I blinked, left what me. The home, everything. He let out a sigh. Everything blew out after that day. The outcry was too much for her. She spiraled, despite your parents' constant attempts to act as though nothing had occurred, said that everyone had deceived her. I remained silent. Quietly, he said, I just wanted to say you weren't crazy. We were all duped by her. But the only person who ever confronted her was you, he hesitated. In any case, forget about the entire conversation. If you ever need beer, coffee, or a chill, I'm always here. It felt like a crack in the wall, although it wasn't much. One that allowed the truth to seep in. The next week, I unexpectedly ran into someone at the Linda grocery shop. She was the only member of the family who had never taken sides and had always been calm, impartial, and observant. Hey, she murmured softly. I just wanted to let you know that I heard what transpired. I prepared myself. And you have my admiration. I blinked. I'm sorry. None of us ever had the guts to do what you did. You established limits, you confronted them all. The cycle was broken by you. She gave me a quick grip on the arm and left. I thought about that moment for days. I received a message request on Instagram on Saturday morning. I couldn't remember the name. I hardly recalled the girl from Clara's wedding, but she was one of her old acquaintances. Hello, I hope it's all right. I'm contacting you. I simply wanted to express that I have always appreciated you after seeing what transpired. You were the only member of your family that ever appeared to be paying attention to what others were saying. You were worthy of better. With my phone in hand, I sat there attempting to make sense of my feelings. It wasn't rage, it wasn't pride. Peace prevailed. They attempted to banish me, but I had freed myself. I purchased a ticket to Iceland a week later, only me. Just in order to witness the northern lights. I didn't seek for permission. I didn't post about it, and I didn't tell anyone. And I muttered one thing as I stood there silently beneath the sky, watching ribbons of green dance. I will not return to my former self. I meant it too. What's humorous? Do you? Despite the blocked phones, ignored emails, and quiet, they still believe I'll return. I am aware that they secretly think this is simply another outburst, another storm for which I will finally offer an apology. The fact that this wasn't a storm is lost on them. This was the building and the evacuation. It's already completely destroyed by fire last week. Clara texted me from a new number. Just know that treatment is working. Even if I know you despise me, I'm attempting to transform. Don't apologize. Just that deceptive half-confession meant to instill shame in me. I didn't read the rest before deleting it. My mom gave me a card for my birthday. There was $25 in it. That would be like wiping off 15 years of emotional debt. She put her signature on it. You continue to make us proud, feeling proud. They no longer even recognize me. The point is that... Do you wish to know my current identity? I'm the person who wakes up without fear, who strolls past upscale shops mindlessly, and who enjoys a good cup of coffee from a mug he actually chose for himself. Perhaps I ought to get Mom or Clara something. I'm no longer a supplier. I don't let you down. Someone else's family fantasy does not include me as a supporting role. I am who I am. Sharply, loudly, and without apology. I sometimes remember that day on the porch when Clara was standing there, angry, wanting to know how I could have done this to my family. And since you were, I now know the response I ought to have given. Never mind. Families are meant to be loving, forgiving, and protective. I didn't have family, though. The scheme was a pyramid wearing a jumper for Christmas. Continue giving until you are exhausted. I didn't break, though. The other day, I detonated it. At a cafe, I saw a couple fighting. As she sobbed, the woman claimed that no one ever noticed that she always did everything. The man muttered, "You're going overboard." I paused. Purchased a croissant for her. I wrote, I left it on her table with a serviette on it. You're not insane. The only one who woke up at last was you. Isn't that what this narrative is? Nor drama, nor retaliation, waking. I've had enough of burning myself to keep others warm. There is a cut in the gas line. The matchbooks are no longer there. The bank isn't open. What about the doors? From the inside, they are locked. Story 4. My brother grinned and added, Thanks for the money, but nobody wants a janitor in the wedding photos. I gave a nod. I canceled the catering I had paid for when I got home. After that, I packed my bags, went on vacation, and laughed. After a day, my phone exploded. My brother shouted it clearly and loudly while I was still standing in the reception tent's corner. He smiled as if it were the last line of a joke he had been wanting to tell all night. Lifting his glass of champagne at me, Aiden Allen yelled, "I really appreciate you taking care of the meals and everything, dude. A true hero's move. People look in my direction." I grinned, uncomfortable. He continued, however, stopping for dramatic effect. "Let's be truthful. A janitor in the wedding pictures is something no one wants." Quiet, then clumsy laughs. His best friend laughed. Emma, his bride, covered her face with her wine glass. A couple of relatives examined their footwear. Alan's colleague turned away after giving me a pathetic look. I simply stood there, wearing my blue uniform shirt and work boots. My sleeves still have the little smell of bleach on them. I chuckled. Only once. A little exhalation via the nose. "You're correct," I said after that. That was all. No drink was thrown by me. I didn't shout. Unlike in a movie, I didn't just barge out as if nothing had occurred. I just turned back, grinned at my younger brother, and strolled off the lawn and into the parking lot. But inside, something within separated neatly and silently. The manner that a deep cut is not felt until the blood is seen. I spent a lot of time sitting in my car and watching people dance through the windows of the reception hall. In contrast to the fairy lights, they seemed like shadows. I took out my phone and accessed the catering confirmation that I had paid for some weeks prior. 93, $24, 7. If canceled within 24 hours, there is no reimbursement. I arrived barely in time. After selecting cancel, I purchased a one-way ticket to Costa Rica. A janitor in the wedding pictures is something no one wants. All right, let's see how people react to pictures of weddings without food on the tables. I appreciate the money, however, nobody wants to see a janitor in the wedding pictures. It wasn't merely a painful sentence. Everything I hadn't been able to notice for the past 8 years was exploded. Allow me to explain. My younger brother is Alan. The lovely one was always the enjoyable one. The child who got by with a skewed smile and justifications like, "I'm working it out," while others cleaned up the pieces. Usually me. I never attended college. Alan was changing majors like socks, so I cleaned them to assist mom and dad with paying our tuition. I was dragging a mop around the corridors of the dorms. He left after 3 semesters. "I don't want to go to college," he added. "However, thank you, my friend. You're saving lives." That was his go-to line when he and Emma moved in together. I assisted him in obtaining his first apartment, paid his past due utilities, and covered the deposit. He remarked, "You're the only one I trust with the wedding aid," after they became engaged. "Can you assist us in making it happen?" I would answer yes. He knew I did the impossible because I always did. I gave up my single vacation in years, took on extra, and skipped weekends. I spent every spare penny on the wedding. I covered the cost of the catering. When Emma's mother forgot her checkbook, I assisted her with the venue deposit. Because the first garment made Emma fat, I even paid for the additional expense of her second dress. I grinned. When they shared a kiss, I applauded. What did I receive? I appreciate the money. However, nobody wants to see a janitor in the wedding pictures. Smirk that phrase. He seemed proud of himself based on the glint in his eye, as if it were a mic drop. I woke up the following morning in my low-cost hotel room, the windows open to let in the sea air and California breeze. It ought to have been a sense of relief. Rather, I felt a knot of anger in my stomach. I went through my phone's contents. 47 calls were not returned. By 6 p.m., the messages had begun. "Emma, where are you?" "Aiden, Alan, did you call off the meal?" "Dude, tell me, this is a misunderstanding. Please, Mom. Do you realize how embarrassed we were?" "Emma, early departures were made." "Dad, Aiden, give me a call immediately. The icing on the cake." "Alan, You went too far, bro. Nobody wants to see a janitor in the wedding pictures, as I mentioned. However, this is pitiful. I spent a lot of time looking at that message. Not even an apology. No, it wasn't my intention, just more teasing. My phone called once more that evening. I left it on voicemail. Then she phoned once more, though. And once more, I finally picked Aiden up. She said, "What's the matter with you?" "Hello, Mother. It's nice to hear from you as well." Emma's relatives are incensed. Everyone went home hungry after they spent all that money. Emma's relatives? I gave a sour laugh. You're referring to those who didn't spend any money and let me pay for the cake. The point isn't that. No, I responded bluntly. Your son is the point. You all laughed when your other kid made fun of me in front of everyone. Come on, please. She lost her temper. It was a joke. I fell silent. Do you truly find it amusing? I inquired. Do you find it amusing? I paid for Alan's wedding, canceled vacations, and declined increases in order to stay in town and assist you with the mortgage, only to be informed I wasn't photo-worthy. At that moment, the line went silent. Indeed, Aiden, you do wear that uniform everywhere. Perhaps if you put forth more effort. That was it. That was the time. The click, I ended the call. Dad called a few hours later. What were you contemplating? He lost his temper. People were phoning us. Nothing to eat was available. Emma sobbed in the restroom. I kept silent. Son, are you listening? Dad, calmly, I said. May I ask you a question? Who covered Alan's last tuition after he left school? I'm irritated, he said. However, he didn't require a new transmission at that time because his automobile broke down. Who assisted him in purchasing a second-hand one? You did. 3 winters ago, when the heating was going to be turned off, you and your mother were behind on the home. A pause occurred. Then he gave a groan. What are you trying to say? Slowly, I stated my point. I have never failed to show up. Not once has anyone expressed gratitude to me without a subsequent guilt trip. You all now act as though I owe you my humiliation and my silence. You're exaggerating. No, Father, I'm being finished. I didn't stop by Alan's house to make amends later that week, not even to quarrel. All I wanted to do was deliver the receipts, without a shirt. He opened the door. I'm holding a beer. He scratched his head and said, Oh, the ghost reappears. I gave him a folder made of manila. What is this? All the receipts for the wedding, I said. Catering rentals, deposits, tips. You and Emma might want to actually pay people this time. He snorted, trying to prove you're the hero again. I just stared at him. You think you're better than me, he said. But all you do is mop floors and hold grudges. No, I said. I think I've been a fool. A janitor who believed love could be bought, who thought family meant something. Alan smirked. Guess you finally figured it out? I gave a nod. Yeah, and I hope you enjoy living with the consequences. 3 days after the wedding. Quiet, no calls, no texts, no apology, just complete cold nothingness. Then a letter arrived. White envelope, my name, and delicate handwriting. Inside was a typed message from Emma. Dear Aiden, we hope you understand what your actions cost us. My parents were humiliated. Alan is heartbroken. We're asking you to do the right thing and reimburse the expenses we had to cover after the catering cancellation. Enclosed is an invoice. We expect a transfer by Friday. Family means duty. The invoice $2,400 for emergency pizza delivery. An additional generator. And my fave, emotional anguish. $500 for her tears. I gazed at the letter, then casually fed it through my blender. Let the confetti pour. The next morning, Mom texted Mom. Family supper, Saturday. You're coming. We need to discuss. At first, I wasn't going to go, but then I thought, nah, forget that. I will go and I'll bring everything. Saturday night, 6 p.m. I strolled in with a rucksack over my shoulder inside my laptop and a USB. My parents were ashamed. Alan is heartbroken. We kindly request that you compensate us for the costs we incurred following the cancellation of the catering, and invoice is enclosed. A move is anticipated by Friday family entails accountability. The bill $2,400 for an additional generator and emergency pizza delivery. And the emotional discomfort, I like best $500 for her tears. I carefully put the letter through my blender after staring at it. Allow the confetti to fall. The next morning, Mom texted Mom, Saturday night family supper. You will arrive. We must speak. I wasn't planning to go at first, but then I changed my mind. I'll bring everything, and I'll go. I arrived at 6 p.m. on Saturday with a bag slung over my shoulder, a USB stick with screenshots, receipts, and a video I had been recording. They were all seated already. Mom was holding tissues as if she were about to cry. Arms crossed, stern face, remarked Dad. Alan, dressed up like he was delivering a TED lecture, and Emma simultaneously looked wounded and arrogant, assured, called Aiden. Mom said quietly, "Thank you for coming." "Don't be," I answered. "It will not take long." Emma bent over. "All of us are working to get over this. But you made us seem foolish. Do you get that? Our day was destroyed by you." I extended my hand. "It's your time now. It's mine now." After setting my laptop down on the table, I turned it on. "What is this?" Dad inquired already. Wary. Evidence. I select a video from the rehearsal dinner and press play. While testing her camera, my buddy, a photographer, unintentionally took this picture. The microphone was turned on. Emma and her dad were standing with Alan, Emma's mother. "So the catering is being paid for by your brother." Alan chuckles. "Yes, the poor fellow believes it gives him a sense of belonging." Emma gave him permission. He can only ever be a part of something respectable in this way. Alan, do not be concerned. Cleaning up after others is nothing new to him, literally. I put the video on hold. There was utter silence in the room. "Still amusing?" I inquired. No one responded. Mom appeared to be trying to vanish. Dad's face became white. Emma hurried to her feet. "That isn't contextualized. Is it?" Alan's text conversations to a buddy were screenshotted when I opened another folder. Alan, the catering is being covered by Aiden, told him we had no money. The DJ is being covered by Emma's parents, but we're keeping the rest for ourselves. Free meals, please. I give Alan my whole attention. You took advantage of me, lied to me, and then made fun of me. Now he stood too. This family was deceived by you. No, I said. At last, I stopped pretending to be the fool who banged his fist against the table. You are behaving like a kid. I looked over at him. Be calm, concentrated. No, I'm finally behaving like a man who isn't your fallback option. Emma's voice came out sharply. Our wedding was ruined by you. No, I said. I restored my respect to myself. Before I left, I grabbed my backpack. I stopped at the entrance. By the way, I forwarded the video to all of the attendees at your wedding, including Alan, your boss. He tensed. Do you recall how you made fun of janitors for being beneath you? Let's see how the HR division handles that. Emma let out a gasp. You didn't. Yes, I did. After that, I left. Not out of rage, in liberty behind me. For the first time in years, I felt nothing at all when I heard Emma start crying. The family disintegrates and a surprising newcomer enters the picture. After leaving that dinner, I didn't take a car home. For the first time in my life, I pulled up to the shore, parked, sat on the hood, and simply gazed out at the ocean. The only person I felt accountable to was myself. I had nothing to offer the waves. They simply were. I could have remained there indefinitely until the phone exploded. There were 27 missed calls. There were 9 voicemails. Emma's mother called me a classless disgrace in a text message, Dad's one. You have caused us irreparable embarrassment. The real kicker, though, I think you're dead, Alan. This is something you'll regret. I read it 3 times. Grinning, I erased it. Don't be angry, only relief. What I didn't expect was the public reaction. Apparently, someone at the wedding caught the tail end of my speech on video, uploaded it to TikTok. The audio of me saying I gave myself back my dignity was already trending by day 3. This is the most satisfying real-life moment I've ever seen. Dude's a janitor, but just mopped the whole family. Even BuzzFeed DM'd me asking for the full story. I ignored it all. I didn't need validation, but wow, it felt good. On Thursday, it got quiet. And that's when Sophie texted me. Sophie, my ex. We dated for 2 years back when I was still trying to earn my family's approval. She left because she couldn't watch me get walked over anymore. Sophie, I saw the video. I've never been prouder of you. I always knew there was fire in you that just buried it. We met for coffee 2 days later. No expectations. No awkward tension. Just 2 people who had endured the same storm and eventually stepped into the sun. I left because I couldn't bear how they treated you, she remarked gently, swirling her drink. I kept hoping you'd see it for yourself, I said finally. She grinned. So now what? I don't know, I said, but for the first time, it'll be my decision. Back home, things were burning. Emma left 3 days after the video went viral. Alan abandoned him. Her parents reportedly warned her that she was a shame to their family. Alan sent me a 2-word note. You prevail, I didn't respond. Then the unexpected surprise arrived. My cousin Kelly got in touch, Kelly. I've also finished them. I was inspired by you. The lease for my own apartment was just signed at family get-togethers. She had always been the reserved one, never stops observing. As it happens, she was observing everything. My mother arrived at my flat on Sunday. I refused to allow her in. All I want to do is chat. Through the screen door, she spoke. Talk then. Her voice faltered. Aiden, you destroyed the family. No long before I stopped trying to mend the family, I said that it was broken. She was about to argue, but refrained. Rather, she muttered, Your dad isn't talking to anybody. Alan is still at home, no longer my burden. You made that plain, I said. Really, you won't assist us? She inquired. Not right now. No? Her gaze. I don't even recognize you, really. At last I grinned and closed the door. I checked my email the next day. Sophie had left a message. In 3 weeks, I'll be heading to Costa Rica. You claimed to have always wanted to travel. Do you still wish to? Before tightening, I gazed at the screen, reserved. 2 days later, I set off on a quick journey. Not Costa Rica, Hurst. Just a peaceful weekend by myself. The evening before my departure, I was drinking whiskey while standing on my balcony. My social media was still inundated with messages. Individuals narrating their personal experiences. Thank you for expressing what they were unable to. My intention was not to set an example. I just got up 9:12 p.m. The former closest buddy of Brian Allen sent another note. I'm proud of you, dude. You were always treated like garbage by him. You got out clear even though you destroyed everything. I grinned. It was finally over. Not because of the adulation I spoke to the sky as I peered out over the city lights. I appreciate the wedding pictures I raised a drink to the night after that heir to liberty. The reality of saying no at last. For you to feel the warmth, at last some bridges must burn. After 2 months, Costa Rican evening warm. As I laid in a hammock with a book I hadn't read in years, the ocean wind caressed my skin. It had a salty mango tree scent. There are no ringing phones. No guilt like a noose around my neck. I had freedom, but you know what caught me off guard the most? They weren't missed by me, not by any means. Growing up in a home like mine teaches you to feel a certain way. Above everything. Duty they inform you. Family is the most important thing. Blood is something you don't ignore. The elder one is you. It's your responsibility. However, they never discuss respect. Mutual effort was never addressed. Never acknowledge that unrestrained love is only control. Wearing a card with their hallmarks. For years, I believed I was doing the right thing. Mending and paying, bending, shrinking. For what purpose to be assigned to my brother's wedding as the janitor? To be asked to pay for dessert after being removed from pictures? No, not anymore. It went viral a week after the wedding. Strangers sent me texts. People said that I motivated them and that I was bold. That they eventually distanced themselves from their own poisonous parents, siblings, and even partners. One message was particularly clear. I was once called useless by my brother. I was taking care of my niece and paying his rent. For the first time, your narrative made me turn away. I think I'm breathing. I could relate to that sensation. Thus, it made me feel something. And I realized I didn't just reclaim my life. I allowed folks to bring theirs to Alan. Still no job, I also never returned. When I last heard from her, she was attempting to wed into an affluent family that her father had met via golf. I wish you luck in your endeavor. Parents, they sent a family friend to intervene as a final ploy, like some peace messenger. A man I hadn't seen since high school appeared at my door. He answered, "You've got your point. Now I understand. Perhaps it's time to return home?" I didn't respond. I simply grabbed my phone, pulled out the wedding picture, the one with the champagne glass and Alan laughing. Additionally, I'm zoomed in and placed slightly out of frame in the corner. I responded, "They didn't just crop the photo. I was clipped by them." There he stood. Nothing to say. He nodded and walked away. I remained close to Sophie, but we didn't reconcile. Scars bind us together, the same form. She once traveled to Costa Rica to see me. We conversed till dawn while sipping rum on the beach. She remarked with a smile as she walked away. "I left you behind, and you've changed." This is a positive thing. She was correct. I completed a task that I had been putting off for years a few weeks ago. I purchased a whiteboard from a nearby office supply store and scribbled a single phrase in large black characters over the top with borders beneath. I mentioned 10 names of folks I had been attempting to win over for years. I put a column next to each name. Showed me respect, took advantage of me. My name was one of the 2 names that received a check mark. Now, when people inquire as to whether I regret my actions revealing the truth and canceling the catering, use a flamethrower to destroy every bridge. I chuckle since it wasn't relatives that I lost. It was a delusion. I wasn't loved by them. I was able to help them and they enjoyed it. They cherished the quiet and compliance. The indeed naturally. Each time I unlocked my wallet, they extended their hands. But then I got up when I declined. They became strangers. Perhaps they were always. Retaliation is a fantasy. For some individuals. I had a dream about peaceful mornings, coffee without fear in my belly. I have friends that text me just for fun, not because they are in need of anything. I had a dream about waking up free of the burden of being someone else's emotional trash can. I have that now, and I will never again give it up. Alan sent me his final note on my birthday. "I hope you're content. You were necessary to us." I eventually said, grinning. "I needed me too. That's the distinction." This concludes the narrative. Freedom, not a picture-perfect family, not a cozy reunion over pie and forgiveness. "You can't call it family if you treat me like furniture," one guy replied, finally, looking his blood in the face. Then he walked away without turning around. "If you're seeking for a lesson here, it is. Call you cheap when you're spending your money if they make fun of your hardship. To cancel the catering, make fun of your work, your attire, and your heart. Book a flight after letting them experience what it's like to be hungry just once. To finally choose yourself, raise a glass and toast. An extra chapter. It was me who called off the catering for my brother's wedding. You may ask me anything. My brother told a gathering 2 months ago. I appreciate the cash, but nobody wants to see a janitor in the wedding pictures. I covered the cost of the catering. I canceled the entire order that evening while humiliation and cold pizza were being provided. I was in Costa Rica drinking wine on a terrace. At the moment, I remained silent. I simply turned to go. I'm now responding to the inquiries that people are making. Do I feel bad about it? No, I'm sorry. I was silent for so long. Not for putting a line at last. Has Alan ever shown regret? No, you win, was his final message. I didn't respond. Was he abandoned by Emma? Indeed, 3 days following the nuptials. Were you supported by your parents? They made an effort to coerce me into reestablishing the family. I physically and emotionally shut the door in their face. Do you still work as a janitor? Yes, and I'm pleased about it. I don't simply clean floors, I clean messes. What were the responses? Good, I was thanked by thousands of strangers. Some people cut out poisonous family members. A female sent a message. You authorized me to resign from my position as the family bank. No, I was referred to as uncaring by others, claimed that I spoiled a wedding. Not for a second. Someone once told me, you'll regret it when your parents are gone. I don't. I've finished speaking. I've moved on. However, one question remains. Who do you become at the end of a lifetime of tidying up after others? I'm still trying to figure that out. And I'm all right with not knowing.